Evening everyone, first up. We've heard a lot about the Natterbox future, what's coming. A lot of stuff is imminent, and it really is. Some of the stuff is a little bit further down the line. But what we wanted to do is actually just take a little bit of time today to talk about some things, some features, it's called tricks and tips, just things that are available within the Natterbox product today. So everything that we're going to show you just in the next few minutes, you can actually go away and view and see and configure in the product as of tomorrow. So, to kick it off, one of the things that we're seeing, and I want to highlight that all the things that we're going to show you today are actually things that we are seeing you, our customers, actually doing, and we're thinking actually we need to share this about a little bit so you can get a sense of what other people are doing. So to kicking it off, we've had a few customers that are actually using Natterbox as a voice platform to integrate into web forms, particularly in the whole area of lead generation. So Lee, I'm going to throw this over to you in a sec, has actually topically been doing quite a lot of Christmas shopping at the moment and has brought this into the demo. So what we're actually going to see is how the whole customer experience can actually be enhanced, because what you want to do with your customers is not just grab their details and have them pop into a queue and call them tomorrow or next week. The customer is hot. If they've just literally entered their name, their number and said, yeah, I'm interested in your product, you actually want to talk to them now. So how can you talk to them within a minute or even within a few seconds? So Lee, is this possible?
Yeah, definitely. So what I've actually got here for you today, we're going to be running another live demo for you. Everyone should hopefully be aware of web to lead forms that you get within Salesforce, where you can fill in data and push that into Salesforce. You get the same with cases as well. So there's sort of two aspects of it. So what I've got here, I've generated a nice, just simple web form website. I've filled in some data. Now Sean is going to select a product. So there we go, he's gone for the Tesla Model 3. That is what I want for Christmas, by the way. And he's going to request, he's going to say call me now. So normally that would just obviously create a lead. We're going to go one step further. If we go to our wallboards, you're actually going to see the call has popped into a call, into the queue. So it's gone from being just a standard lead to actually generating a call. So he's now going to go and become our end user. So we're going to nip to the end user panel. End user is currently on training at this event or wherever, so he's going to set himself to available. All of a sudden, that call now comes in. So that hot lead, or that case that you've got, has populated and has created a call that is now calling whichever number this was, Sean's. So there we go, that's quite straightforward. I'll kind of show you how we can do that. So if we go back to the presentation, it's actually quite simple. So again, you've got the web form creating a lead. From then, it's two steps. First step, process builder in Salesforce. So for this, you're going to need to just have a little bit of knowledge, advanced Salesforce admin, a little bit of knowledge of process builder, and we're going to be calling a Natterbox phone call Apex class, which is standard. It's all in all the packages. Anyone can access it now. We're putting in a few variables. And from that is going to be kicking off a Natterbox call flow policy, which again, any Natterbox administrator will be able to set up for you, which is the next slide. There we go. So that dynamic IVR sorry, not the dynamic IVR, that's the next bit. The call that you've just seen there has all just taken place from those two slides. That's exactly what it's done. It's quite straightforward.
Yeah, what we've also done is, for each of these things that we're going to show you, we've actually given them a score in terms of how easy or how complex they are to actually implement. So this one is a 7 out of 10, which is probably one of the more complex ones we're going to see tonight. So what sort of skill set is needed to get this done, and how long do you think it would take to set up?
Yeah, so you, as I mentioned earlier, you kind of need an admin Salesforce skill set to know about process builder and those types of things. The other side of it, you need to know about Natterbox to be able to create a call routing policy that you can see here on the screen. So it is probably going to be the most complex thing we show you tonight, but it actually isn't that difficult. And with that, including the form that I created, I probably did in about 2 hours. So it's actually quite quick to do.
Brilliant. So 7 out of 10 on that one. Now, moving on quickly, the eagle-eyed amongst you, looking at our new CTI that just popped up there on Sean's panel, may well have noted that actually there were some images. Well, I think we've got an image and a map. There's a Tesla Model 3 that Lee picked, and a map is also in there. So this is a feature of the new CTI, which is a lot more feature rich. So how are you seeing some of our customers potentially using this, Lee?
So we've got a couple of different customers that are using it in slightly different ways. Imaging always sort of helps. When you can see an image on the screen, it's better than text. It's just something a bit different. So we've got one customer who's a global retailer. They have different brands, so when they get calls, they actually get an image of the brand that the person is calling about appearing on the screen. So very quickly, the agent can identify the brand that that person is calling about. Another customer, ourselves included, can pop things like a customer satisfaction score with different colours. So if they have a particularly low satisfaction score, it could be red. So up to a green, you could have movable scales and things like that. So there's lots of different things you can do with that.
Level of complexity, what did we give this one, Sean? We gave it a 4 out of 10, so it's getting a lot easier to implement. Skillset, how much time, Lee?
Just to send some basic information, so a basic image or anything like that, really, really easy to do, and just requires the CTI license. If you want to do something more complex, where you're pulling data out of Salesforce to put in, it takes the complexity up a little bit more, but you would also need, say, contact centre as well from us.
Brilliant, thank you. So, now moving on to your dynamic IVR that you mentioned previously. So, IVR, interactive voice response, it's something that we are all mostly familiar with, but we do associate it, all the time, IVR is something that is static. If you phone into an organisation, you usually get the same options, whether it's your bank or somebody else. You're used to those 5 sets of options, and then the next menu has got 3 on them. It doesn't really change. But actually with Natterbox, you can now think about, maybe I can make this dynamic, maybe I can change it. Instead of those 7 options are there, if the system knows who I am, it's actually only going to play the 3 options that are relevant to me. So we're seeing this used very cleverly in a customer support environment today. So how's it being used, Lee?
So everyone's got cases with other particular businesses. If you call in, usually you're going to speak to an agent and they will ask you, okay, can I have your case number? Now what if we could change that, and instead of you giving them the case number, the system looked up, saw what cases you had open, and actually gave you the option to select those cases. So actually we've got another live demo for you. So I'm just going to jump on my phone and I'm going to call in. So hopefully this comes through the speakers.
Welcome to Santa Support. You have 3 open cases. Please select from the following options. To raise a new case, please press hash. Press 1 for damaged chimney. Press 2 for Rudolph's nose is blue. Press 3 for dirty footprints on carpet.
Okay, you get the idea. So what Sean's going to do is he's going to come in, we're just going to close off or delete a case. So there are now actually 2 cases. If I call exactly the same number from exactly the same phone.
Welcome to Santa Support. You have 2 open cases. Please select from the following options. To raise a new case, please press hash. Press 1 for damaged chimney. Press 2 for Rudolph's nose is blue.
There we go. So just basically by changing Salesforce data, the routing experience is better for the end customer because they don't have additional options to go through.
How complex? Who could do it?
What you can see there on the screen is the entirety of that policy. There's a Salesforce lookup and then a component that is actually running that and processing that data and giving you the IVR. So those 5 components that you can see on the screen will route all of those calls for all of the people ringing into your support line. So actually it's not that difficult.
This one's a really powerful one that we've seen in a support environment, being able to personalise that. But I'm going to go on to, our next one is actually, I think is a 1 out of 10. So I think one that anybody with just some general and basic knowledge of the Natterbox platform can impact. It's just around the voices, good old text-to-speech technology, which is continuously evolving. I think when we go back at kind of the early days and our early experience of it can be sort of quite robotic voices, not always positive. I think actually most of us here, I say most, are native English speakers. I think from that perspective, it's actually, our experience has been a lot better. When we've been working in some Latin American countries, Portuguese in particular, we found was really, really hit and miss because the technology wasn't as advanced. But where we are today within Natterbox is we've got a brand new set of voices that are based on the Google Voices and have an AI engine behind them. So literally, let's just hear, Sean, where it's at today with a quick snippet.
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there.
Okay. So the message is, go away and have a play around with the platform. Lee, where do we find it? Where do we look to find the options?
Yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, it's really, really easy to do. There's basically two settings that you've got. First one is on the left-hand side of your screen, which is your account settings within inside of Natterbox, within inside of Salesforce. So you have a voice field there that you can go and you can choose your default voice for your entire org. So that is available to you from now. You can go back and you can change that within 10 seconds of loading up Salesforce. The one on the right-hand side is the individual speak component or app that is within inside of the routing policy. So again, you can change those voices for all the different speeches that you've got within inside of routing policies.
And this is going to be a continued evolution with Google Voices. The AI engine behind them is only going to continuously improve that going forward. Next one, no presentation is going to be complete without a mention of GDPR. Not the most interesting subject to talk about. But we're going to give you something where actually you can go back and kind of make a contribution to how GDPR and data is handled in your organisation. I actually had an interesting conversation with somebody recently who was running an outbound contact centre, and they ran a report to look at, just look across a day, how many customers were contacted whose preference was set to do not call. It was 29% of the calls that were made on that particular day were to people who'd asked not to be contacted by that particular organisation. So, working with Natterbox, working with Salesforce, Lee, we got an answer to this one?
You know we have. So again, we're going to do a very quick demo for you. So Sean's going to nip back into Salesforce for us, and we've got two contacts that are open at the top of the screen. We've got Ebenezer and we've got Bob Cratchit. Hopefully you recognise the names. Now we're going to start with Bob. Bob's quite a nice chap. He likes us calling him. So you can see there at the top of the screen we've got the do not call flag that is a standard flag in Salesforce. That isn't ticked. So when we click on his mobile phone number, Greg, I think your phone's going to start ringing. Call's going to go out. It should ring. Hopefully it's ringing. There we go, perfect. So we can hang up there. So call has gone through, nice and easy. Everyone expects that. We're now going to go and do exactly the same thing with Ebenezer Scrooge, who I have no idea why he doesn't like Christmas, but he's not going to let us call him. But the agent, Sean, hasn't seen that. So we're going to try calling him again. This time,
You are prohibited from calling this contact.
it's going to give us a message, and you note on the CTI that it's going to tell us that the outbound call is blocked there. Very, very easy to do that. If we nip back to the slides, all it is a simple Salesforce lookup on the outbound policy based on the number that you're dialing. And if that flag, that do not call flag, is checked, we're going to hang up the call. If it isn't, we're going to connect it through just as normal. Very, very easy to do.
3 out of 10, what did we give that one?
Something like
I think
that.
it was
Don't
that,
think so.
around a 3 out of 10. We're going to go back to IVR, and our customers use it a lot, and just want to ask you the question, have you actually looked at optimizing your IVR? Have you actually studied, what buttons do customers press? Because if you've got 6 options up front, and most of your customers are going through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then getting to 6 and going down that route, they're spending an awful lot of time, potentially wasted time, before they get through to actually talking to the agent. So, Lee, can we help us all here?
Yeah, you know the answer's always yes with me. So here we've got a screenshot of the policy. He's asked many times before. We've got a screenshot of the policy with my IVR there with 4 options in. You'll see there's 4 equal components, or there's actually 5 components here to the side of it. What they are managed property apps, which again everyone has got access to. So from the individual IVR option, I've gone into a managed properties app and I've set a custom property. In this instance, I've set a custom property called IVR to be the value that I want the switchboard to be. So the one that's highlighted there is existing order. So if someone presses 2 for existing order, it's going to set the IVR variable to existing order. Now, the good thing about that is if you've got a field in the call reporting object within inside of Salesforce, which is our native reporting object, if you've got a field called IVR, we're going to push that variable and push that value through to that every time a call goes through. So that will automatically happen, and the result of that would be a graph that looks something like this. So you can quickly see, actually, a lot of people are requesting new orders, but we've also got a lot of people that go through and wait and select on the naughty or nice IVR option. So actually, let's move that, let's change that around, let's take that and bring it forward so it's one of the first options. Therefore, callers aren't waiting as long to get the option they want, therefore reducing hunt times, improving the end user experience.
Good. One of our newer features, and Neil mentioned earlier that Natterbox has been growing its business a lot in North America. A lot of that is driven by our global customers that we work with in Europe, and then we move into North America. And occasionally we get hit by features that are must in certain markets. And this was one that it hit us a little while back, just around how we manage callbacks. And some contact centres overstaff and missed calls and answered calls aren't an issue. Others have very long calls, and therefore by nature answering every call becomes an issue. Now, I was really surprised that with some customers in North America, they actually have up to 80 or 90% of their calls actually are callbacks. So is that what the customer wants? Is it a positive experience? So how have we built it, Lee? What positive experience can the customer have using a callback?
So the historic solution for callbacks were you would call in, you would get fed up of waiting, hit a button, and that would usually create a case or do something for you to call back. Now, we've come at it in a different way. The way that we do it is our callback keeps your position within the queue itself. So you never actually leave the queue. Your call still exists in the queue. However, you don't have to be sat on hold. It's so frustrating when you're sitting there, you're on hold, you get your phone out, you're listening to your hold music, but you've got other things to do. So you just put it on loudspeaker, put it down, and occasionally, when they answer, you miss it. Well, what happens if you were still in hold, and this is the way that it works with us. So you're still on hold, you retain your position in the queue, you bubble up, bubble up, bubble up. Once you get to the top, we ring an agent. The agent answers, we then ring your phone. So you can actually get on with your day-to-day business, you can do whatever you were doing before, you're not being restricted by sitting there and holding onto your phone, waiting for that phone to be answered. And the options that you've got there are simply within the call queue. So you can go in and you can enable a callback, and there's a few different options there that you can set to suit it for your business, really.
How quick to set it up?
To set this up is a couple of clicks. The complexity comes with no one's going to know about callbacks unless you actually tell them. So you've got to make sure there are announcements within the call queue itself. To actually say, by the way, you can press hash in this instance to request a callback.
So 5 out of 10 would have been 3 out of 10 if there wasn't the messaging component.
Yeah.
So a kind of semi-complex one. Brilliant. Last one, and it's a little bit of a Christmas tip for you. We're actually within customer support. Once we hit the start of December, and we've done the stats on this, we get a lot of requests of, can you help me with my messaging? Our opening hours are changing over Christmas. What can we do? And actually, get prepared and get ready for it now. You don't need to wait until then. You can have everything teed up. And when it comes to messaging, it's not just about Christmas, because it's kind of topical, but actually for any sort of event, any sort of circumstance, and also part of your business continuity planning, there's a lot that you can do up front when your calls hit a contact center from a routing point of view, from a messaging point of view, that you can have dormant sitting there waiting to go. And rather than having to rewrite something very, very quickly, you can just prioritize something, bring something to the top. So talk us through this one.
Yeah, so I think I was pushing my luck with the demo god, so I've just recorded a video for this one. So what we've got here is just a standard policy. I've already put my message in there, so saying that the elves are currently enjoying a meal before, so please call back tomorrow. I've got a rule in place at the bottom there that I've called Christmas Party. Now you can see that this is a time of day rule. So I've set up that it is between the 12th and the 12th of December, so it has to happen on that day at any time, and I've ticked it because we know that the 12th of December is on a Thursday. So that will fire on the 12th of December. Now what I will do is click on that rule and I will drag it to the top of my rules. That way it becomes an exception rule, because we always want to check that. If we didn't check it first, it might never fire. We join that up to the Christmas party message and we save the policy. Done. We could set that up really far in advance. We could do that now for the next 5 Christmases, or 20 Christmases, however long you want. It isn't just Christmas parties, it could be bank holidays, meetings, other things. You can set, the whole point of this is that you can set this up as far in advance as you want, and then not have to worry about it again. And once those rules get hit, as long as they're in the right place and the logic is correct, the calls will route differently.
So just to recap, every single one of these features is available today. A number of the sales engineering and customer support team is going to be around afterwards as well. So if there's anything that you think, I want to know more about that, the guys wearing the white polos are the ones to see, and they'll be able to talk you through something. So I want to hand back to Neil and Neil now. We've done the present, so we're going to go back to the future, I think, with a sense of what's coming in 2020 overall from Natterbox.